Another review. I'm reviewing Kazuko Okakura's book called Book of Tea. This book was first published in 1906, but this edition was published in 1989, 1986, and it has this book. It's a little bit more than just about tea. Some background information on this author. He went to an English school. He was raised around the time where Japan was really becoming westernized, and so he saw a lot of people just abandoning a lot of traditional Japanese ways of thinking and ways like art and ways of appreciating a lot of things. He was disheartened by just the automatic dismissal of pretty much their culture in favor for this westernized culture. This book is written directly towards Westerners. He criticizes the fact that the Westerners, they look at Japan and Asian countries and like, oh, they only take the things that they think are weird and quirky, and they don't really absorb them, but they just like, hey, look, this is weird, I'm just going to display this on my wall because it's like, hey, I went to this cookie place. And so, like, the things that they take from Japan are typically the flashy things, like the samurai. He feels like that is a disservice to real Japanese culture and really what Japanese, like even Asian culture is all about. That it's not all about that flash, and those things really don't represent what Asian culture is at the core. And so in a way, he uses tea as an analogy to just epitomize Asian culture. He talks about what tea represents and how the concept of tea really developed. He describes how, you know, traditionally art should be appreciated, how teaism really is derived from Zen Buddhism, and how that really pushed against Confucianism. He describes the different types of philosophies in China mainly, and also he describes just pretty much how a tea room should be and how that represents in general how the Asian perspective is very different and how it should be honored, and how at least the Japanese people shouldn't forget about it, and everyone can benefit from looking at things in a more simplistic way. I really love the way that he described, you know, the tea room, where it says precise poverty, and in the sense that in the tea room everyone is equal. It's really interesting how a lot of dedication and honoring of nature is really endued in maintaining such a simple, sparse space, and how that there is beauty in that, and that it is a means for reflection that you kind of lose when you have just, you know, a lot of clutter around everywhere. He even describes how, you know, he finds the Western aesthetic very, very odd, and how no one can really appreciate anything that is in like a Western style house. In a tea room, you shouldn't have two of the same thing. So if you have a painting and you have a flower in a vase, you shouldn't have a painting of a flower. You should have a painting of something else. Things shouldn't match, because you should be able to look at that thing, and if the teacup is black, you should be able to appreciate that the teacup is black, and not that, oh, it matches perfectly with the tray. He describes how discerning it is to talk to someone, at least in a Western style house. So you're talking to them, and behind them is a portrait, and so how that weird feeling if you're not really paying attention to the person, since you're also looking at another person, and how it's distracting. I think one of the most beautiful parts that he describes in here is about flowers, or flower arranging, and it is just, I've never heard the description or the treatment of flowers done in such a poetic way, of how the perspective of the world from a flower and how it must view humans. And humans just brutalize and cut and maim, and you know, the flower just takes it in stride, and how it's graceful in death. I really did just want to absorb this book. It includes really beautiful pictures. I mean, this book seems pretty old, like if you look at it, all ratty. It looks ratty, but it has like these pictures that are like seem almost like brand new, and I thought that was really interesting. But you know, this chapter describes Taoism and Zenism. I think some of the phrases that he uses aren't really used anymore, but that isn't really distracting for me. This is a book I definitely want to purchase for myself. I personally love tea. Like, I love tea. Yeah, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I think that this is a beautiful description of what traditional tea culture really conveys, how it evolves, and how it pretty much is an analogy for how to approach life. And so I just really love this book because, I mean, that's almost my experience with tea. I drink Chinese tea and I drink a little bit of Japanese tea, but it is, I mean, it is amazing, and I think this is good for like serious tea drinkers, but if you're not a tea drinker, this might be a good way of understanding at least Asian culture. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I hope to buy it soon. Alright, talk to you later. Bye.